Well, hello there, ladies and gents. Great to be back with everybody here today on Advance Your Wealth. Ryan Ruff, of course, your moderator, but as always, I've got Homer Smith, private wealth advisor, standing by. We're going to be jumping into a fun conversation today. You know, we talk about a lot of these wealth management strategies and solutions that Homer is discussing and, of course, implementing for a lot of his clients. But also, we like to have some fun, enjoyable conversations about what comes on the back end of successful wealth management. And that's living a life of significance. You've heard us use that term on this show in the past. Well, we're going to be double clicking into that idea today. You know, all of us want to live our best lives. We want to make sure that we have a successful and fulfilling life. So Homer and I are first going to be talking through the understanding process of really examining what your best life looks like to you, of course. But then also we're going to start talking through some steps, some actionable steps somebody can be taken to not only define what that life looks like, but also start down the road of actually implementing it into your day-to-day. So before we get into all that, let's go ahead and say hi to Homer. Homer, good to see you today. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Ryan. And like you mentioned too, I'm excited to talk about a subject today that's a little bit, outside of the norm of maybe a financial advisor wealth management conversation where we're not talking specifically about the numbers or a strategy to reduce taxes or estate planning, but really, the bigger picture for the families that we work with. And, as we approach working with our families, from an overall planning standpoint, we have three pillars that we really focus on that we call Discover, Plan, and Lead. And the Discover part is all about helping our clients move from a life of chaos to a life of clarity. What I mean by that is helping them really, most of them are very busy business owners and entrepreneurs, and there's just so much going on around them that they can't even get clarity on what's most important to them. So we spend time doing that at the beginning. The plan part is helping them move from this world where they're constantly chasing after everything that's coming in front of them from all sorts of different directions, and really getting more certainty that they're actually going to be able to achieve the things that they want to achieve. And that's where we believe actually most advisors stop. And if they do well, they're doing well helping discover and plan for their families. But that's where we just think what we are doing for our families is just beginning. And that's where we go into the lead part. And that's really about helping our families move from this life of success to a life of significance. And really, getting more fulfilled than they've ever been in their lives. And so this topic is perfect to that. It's all about this life of success to a life of significance. So it's something we talk about with clients all the time. And so I think it's perfect to vet that out and kind of explain that a little bit, in this format. So really looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, of course. And, as folks are seeing there, probably at the bottom of their screens, today's episode is entitled, "What does your best life look like?" Let's start at the beginning, if you will, of that process that you laid out from success to significance. Starting with success, I think it's, pretty standard across the board. Most people want to live a successful life. But, as you've mentioned before on this show, the idea of defining what success means can be a challenging area for a lot of folks. Double click into this idea and kind of set the scene on success for us.
And I think there can be some confusion too on success versus significance and what they really mean. And I think what we have seen is most people define success, a lot of times as, related to money, whether it's a certain level of assets, a value of their business. And it drives a lot of what they do, and their goal to build their business and build their income is to support their family. And so a lot of it, though, is still money related. What they often don't do is really go beyond that and define, like, what does really a life of significance mean? So beyond that success, where are their values and how do their values come into play? And what are other things that are important to them to even know, is the money we're building really what we want and need, right? And have we really done the work to identify that? And, what happens a lot, and I work, again, with mostly private business owners, and usually somewhere along the way, we end up talking about them eventually having a goal of selling or transition the business. And when I ask, well, what does that number need to be? And they always have a number, whether it's 50 million, 100 million, whatever it is. And then ask them why. And they very often don't have like an answer beyond, well, that just sounds like a good number, or it's a number that sounds like success. It really isn't necessarily attached to a bigger purpose or a bigger reason behind that. And so I think this discussion of helping them think through that and the work that we do with them on that is critically important.
Agreed. Well, let's look at that other side of the coin now. Significance as a whole. What does a life of significance look like to, your clients and the conversations you guys have?
Yeah, I think interestingly enough, and probably not a surprise, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And a research firm that we work with, CEG Insights, asked over 1,200 individuals on what their views of success and significance in their best life was all about. And it's very different based on which generation, which age you're in, and many other factors. And older generations, baby boomers and older, they're some of the words and things they think about are things like respect and integrity. When you get to like Gen Xers, it's more about working hard and achievement. And then you get to younger millennials and those groups, it's about work-life balance. And so it's just going to be different based on where you're at in your life and what you're looking at. So I thought that was it is going to be a very individual question.
So, Homer, you had mentioned a moment ago, millennials, just a very big generation out there, which are pretty much the largest demographic group that exists in today's day and age. What do millennials really view as kind of a key factor within a successful life?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, millennials are about 72 million in the United States, so it's a really really big group. Um, and again, I think there's a lot of stereotypes and things when people, especially older generations, looking at millennials and kind of placing their own views of their values. But what we find is that group is what's really important to them is making an impact on the world and causes that are bigger than themselves, as well as a lot of focus on personal growth and development. So I think that's it's I think, and again, you may have heard some of the same things, and others that it's more of a this generation is lazy and doesn't want to work hard. I think it's just very different values that they focus on, and they still want to make that massive impact in the world. They just want to do it in a different way.
Certainly, certainly. I want to peel back the curtain here for just a moment and dig a touch deeper. Can you maybe speak to a little bit of the idea of how different wealth levels, maybe your upbringing, the level of affluence that you, your family, your matriarch or patriarch of your family had, as you grew up and then became an adult, became a successful entrepreneur, so on and so forth, how that can alter or shape the course of what your view of success ultimately is?
Yeah, from the data, and I think it makes sense when you think about it that as you cross different wealth thresholds, what you find is important, impactful, and your values are going to shift. So, as you achieve higher levels of wealth, again, being respected by your peers and recognition almost that you've achieved a certain level of success is important. Whereas if you're not there yet, if you're at a lower level of wealth, it's going to be more focusing on building that wealth and achieving higher incomes for your family. I think also that what we find is, again, as families achieve certain levels of wealth or individuals, there's less focus on kind of building and developing your personal education and getting better at things, where those younger and often less wealthy families, it's much more focused on needing to develop those skills and experience so that they can move up into those higher echelons of wealth.
Got it. And let's get into the difference now, Homer, between, I guess, that the moments itself of when somebody achieves success in their definition of success, and then also might step into that life of significance you mentioned earlier. What's kind of the difference between these two moments in time?
Yeah, I think a way that we think about it and talk with our families about it, especially more in terms of how they want to pass their wealth down to the next generation. When we define wealth, we say it's not only about the money, it's also about transitioning your values to the next generation and helping make sure they understand what it took to build the wealth that they created. And so I think that translates very well into this, and that a lot of families, when they initially just define success, significance, it's about do they have fulfilling relationships with their family, with their friends, and what becomes even more and more important later in life is things like health. And there's sayings around as you get to the point of unhealthy or being unhealthy, that you would give up all of your wealth for like one day of health. And so how that becomes more and more important as people age, where we kind of go to the next level, and what we've kind of seen with our clients and some of the things that we've researched around it is that as you get more and more wealth, people start to even add in a bigger picture of purpose about causes bigger than themselves. And so that's like making a bigger difference in the world, focusing on the organizations and charities that are important to them, and doing the work around the world for those causes that they care about. So that purpose, being more fulfilled and doing something more and bigger than yourself, becomes more and more important as well.
Sure thing, Homer. And you had mentioned earlier that people don't necessarily take the time or enough time, maybe, to really think through. I don't want to call them issues, but think through these thought points of, okay, what does success really look like to me? What is significance? For me to look back and feel like I lived a life worth living. How do I get there, and what really makes me feel good about that? Any advice for somebody on how to get clarity to walk through that process of defining what success truly means for them?
And I think this is it. One thing to keep in mind here is I think this is such a personal decision or question, right? And the answer is going to be very personal to you. So I think it's important. I think it's valuable to ask others and get a sense for what others value and where they find purpose and what's significant to them. But at the end of the day, this really should come down to really examining it for yourself. So starting with how do I define success in my own life, and then beyond that, what does significance then mean to me beyond success? I think it's really asking a lot of open-ended questions, to yourself as well. Like, what are big milestones that I would want to achieve in my life? And, what are those causes that maybe I've been so busy with life, building my business, growing a family and trying to maintain great relationships there that, I really haven't had time to think about the causes that are most important to me. But, right now, if you knew that there was, no budget and no limit on time, like what would you do with that time, and what causes would you support? I also think it's important to not judge yourself harshly. I think a lot of the families we work with, again, are very busy entrepreneurs that are growing families, growing business at the same time. And they might have peers, or they might have mentors that they see doing, work beyond, the business they're building in their family. And they might feel like, hey, I'm not doing enough, and might even look harshly on themselves. I think it's really important to recognize, again, where you're at in your own life. And that's going to really define, your success and what significance means to you. And it's going to change. And that as your wealth grows and as your time freedom increases, it's going to open the door to even more. So it's like, don't be judging yourselves on your where you're at today. And then I think the last piece of advice I would say is incorporate your family. So if you're married, I think it's hugely important to incorporate your spouse into the discussion on, what are our values, not only our individual values, but shared family values. What are some of the causes that we care about? And I would even suggest, depending on the age of your kids, bring in your kids or even grandkids into that discussion, and thinking about it as, what do we want our family brand? What do we want our family constitution to be? What do we want to be known for as a family? And what we find, because there's also lots of studies that we've talked about on this show before, that, wealth creators, that first generation that creates a significant amount of wealth, there's an unfortunate amount of times, like 90% of the time, that wealth doesn't make it past the third generation. And one of the reasons is there's not a lot of good family harmony and communication between and amongst generations. And so we're the best place to always start to increase that family harmony is your values, and talking about, what is purpose, what is significance mean for our family. So I think that's a really important step in the process.
No, I couldn't agree more myself, Homer. And we've been having, or rather, you've been having these conversations of defining significance, defining success to and with your clients over the years. And likely it's been a series of many years because you've been serving these successful families for so long. But for somebody that maybe hasn't had the opportunity to dig into some of this, maybe not just with their spouse, but with like a trusted advisor like yourself, we've talked on this show in the past about this idea of discovery process. It's kind of that initial touch point of going through these types of conversations. Could you, for those that aren't familiar with what that discovery process entails, how it operates, could you bring us up to speed on what that looks like and how this really is kind of the impetus of starting that conversation surrounding what significance really means?
Yeah, the discovery process is really important with our client relationships. And I think that it's not a one-time event. And so I think as we move through different stages of the relationship we have with our clients, discovery is a constant part of the process. So initially, oftentimes that discovery is much more focused on the success part. It's the financial part. And because we need to get them from that chaos to clarity, we need to get them from that chasing to certainty, so that we can free up their mind and free up their time to get to then focus on, okay, what does success and significance mean to me? And I find that it's really hard for them to focus on that if they see all these other plates spinning and all these other issues that they're not clear on. And so, often it's in the rediscovery. It's 1 or 2 years into the relationship where we have completed a lot of these initial projects to, get their estate plan in order, get their business succession plan in order, make sure that they recognize all the options for tax planning and asset protection. They feel like, okay, like we're in a much better place, so that we can take some of that mental energy we've had spinning all those plates, now focus on this idea of what does significance even mean to us. And so it is a process, and it's not something that I find that most of our clients have nailed and are even ready to really dive deeply into in the first meeting. It tends to take time and work through it. And again, I take such a large amount of joy when we can get them past that initial stage where they can really focus on that. And when but it's interesting, we talk about this in our first meetings with clients. Now we've added this into the discussion, kind of this discover, plan, lead part. And it's been really fulfilling to me that as we talk to clients and say, this is our goal. Our goal is to take you from chaos to clarity, from chasing to certainty, and then ultimately from success to significance, that you feel more fulfilled than you've ever been. We get really strong reactions from clients about, wow, yes, I really want that. And so it's really powerful to know that while they mostly look to us initially thinking, hey, if they can just get our financial world in order, that would be a huge win, to then also know that, hey, this team is going to be a group that can guide us to being more fulfilled. Like it's really, I would say, encouraging for them, or it takes it even to another level, I think, in how they view the work that we're going to be doing for them. And so it's something that we take a lot of pride in and are excited to do as part of the process with our clients.
Of course. Well, Homer, for folks out there that are feeling energized by this conversation or recognizing the value and maybe kickstarting that discovery process, opening up this dialogue, having that conversation with you and your team, what would be the best way somebody could get in touch with you guys to really kick things off?
I think reaching out via email is probably the easiest way, or going to our website and taking a look at some of the material we have there and how we help our families. But it all starts with that discovery meeting. And what I find is, if nothing else, when we talk to clients, like, we're going to go through a process at the very beginning of working with every client where we're going to do an overall review before we commit to working to each other, so that we can find what gaps and opportunities might be there and help you get that clarity. So I think, if nothing else, just helping our clients go from this life of chaos to at least understanding what's most important to them, what are the outcomes they want to achieve, is really valuable. So happy to have you reach out, and love to schedule a meeting like that with you, and go through that with what's important to you.
Very cool. Well, Homer, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to jump into this. I know today's discussion a little off the beaten path from what we typically do, but it's obviously a very integral and important part of the conversations you're having with clients. So good stuff today, and I'll see you back here on the next one.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Good to see you as always.
Of course. And hey, folks, we're going to take a final moment, as we typically do, and thank you for spending some time with us on the podcast today. And if you enjoyed today's discussion, make sure you subscribe to the show on whichever platform you did check us out on, so that you don't miss out on future conversations like the one we had today, or other conversations where Homer and I are diving into the weeds, really, of some of these wealth management strategies and solutions that Homer and his team are implementing on clients' behalf over there. Before Homer, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long now, but we appreciate you stopping by and being with us on Advance Your Wealth.